I was watching the 6 o'clock news as per usual, and for the past few weeks, I kept seeing news about this skeleton man running around the city, stealing everyone's Yeezys. The skeleton man was terrifying to look at, as he was a skeleton. People would get so scared looking at him that they would be unable to move, while the skeleton man stole their Yeezys. I was getting pretty annoyed with the skeleton man's antics before, but what happened next was the straw that broke the camel's back. The news cut to a live recording of Skeleton Man trying to rob a shoe store with a Glock. Normally, I would not care about a situation like this, but then I heard the Skeleton Man utter the cursed phrase, "I'm gonna say the N-word." I was enraged at Skeleton Man's accursed threat and jumped out of my window to chase him down. I Naruto ran down the streets, jumping over cars with my blinding speeds. I eventually got to the shoe store and pointed my rocket launcher at the Skeleton Man. From there, the standoff began. "Skeleton Man!" I said. "It is time for you to end your horrible reign of Yeezy stealing now." Skeleton Man's jaw flung open, so I assumed that he had gasped. I fired the rocket launcher at Skeleton Man, and an explosion occurred. I was sure that I had killed the Skeleton Man. I killed all the bystanders, which I didn't intend to do, but they were a necessary sacrifice. All was well for a while, until I heard laughing, followed by slow clapping. "I commend your bravery, young one, but I've been Yeezy hunting for 6 months now, and I don't plan to stop anytime soon. Now it is time for you to pay the price." Skeleton Man began firing shots at me, but I was able to jump behind a table for cover. I pulled out my 2 Desert Eagles and shot back at him, but I underestimated his abilities. Skeleton Man did a triple backflip somersault and landed behind the shoe store counter. The two of us fired shots at each other for what felt like 20 minutes, until suddenly, Skeleton Man spoke up. "Wait a moment. Do you hear that?" Skeleton Man's voice was no different from an average person's, but he didn't have skin, which is creepy. "What are you talking about?" I replied, assuming he was going to use his skeleton trickery to weasel his way out of getting away with the Yeezys. But then, I heard it. No, it couldn't be. I had heard a sound I never expected to hear again. The unmistakable, rhythmic clapping of his ass cheeks. No, it can't be. He died in Vietnam. I saw the simp army take him down and devour his luscious cheeks. The fear in Skeleton Man's voice was evident. But knowing what we were up against, it was a miracle he didn't poop his pants and run for the hills. He spoke up almost immediately. "Of course he is alive. Did you really think that the simp army would have been strong enough to take down a beast like this?" I was furious. There was no way this could have happened. I lashed out at Skeleton Man for insinuating what I knew could not have been real. "Shut up, Skeleton Man! I saw him die. I was at his funeral. I took care of his children. He cannot be alive." My illusion was shattered when the clapping stopped, and a deep, burly voice spoke out to us. "I am very much alive, donkey." I looked over the table to see the green ogre in all his glory. He smiled at the two of us with a sly grin. He was as beautiful as the day I lost him, if not more so. Shrek-senpai, is that you?" I called out to him, my eyes glistening and my mouth stretching as far as it could. "It is indeed, donkey. I have returned to the mortal plane at last, and here to consume the layers of the weak." Skeleton Man peeked over the counter, and although he had no skin or eyebrows, I could tell he was experiencing intense feelings of rage and jealousy. I didn't blame him. He was always jealous of the relationship Shrek and I had. Who wouldn't be? Shrek was the pinnacle of masculine energy, and he had the most alluring and lustful pheromones of any man. No one could resist his beckoning call. "Neither of you move! My Glock still has ammo, and I will steal both of your Yeezys right now," Skeleton Man said. Shrek merely laughed at the skeleton man's threat, as the thought of being shot was a laughable attempt on his life. "You are a fool, skeleton man. Unlike you, ogres have lairs." I smirked, as I knew Skeleton Man was cornered. "This is the end of you, Skeleton Man. You can't possibly take on both of us at once." Skeleton Man was crazy, but he wasn't stupid. He knew he wouldn't be able to stand a chance, so he had to resort to a cheap tactic. Skeleton Man jumped out of the window and began booking it. Shrek and I quickly followed suit. I jumped upon his strapping broad shoulders, and he began Naruto running towards Skeleton Man. We all ran for a good 12 miles, until Skeleton Man reached a shipping yard. He was running out of space to run, and he was getting worried. I was sure that we had him, but Shrek had a frustrated look on his face. I was unsure as to why, for only a moment, until I saw what he had seen. Skeleton Man had tied a jetpack to his torso, and he began flying off into the sky. "Shit!" I exclaimed. "How will we be able to catch him now?" Shrek smirked and clicked his heels together. He extended his arms in a T-pose function, and suddenly, he had blasted off into the sky after Skeleton Man, like a ballistic missile. Skeleton Man looked behind him, and although he didn't have skin or eyes, I could tell he was surprised. "Oh, shit!" was all he managed to say, before Shrek collided with his hard bones. My ears rang out, as I looked to see Skeleton Man and Shrek falling towards the ocean below. I thought this was it. After all I'd seen in my time, I was going to drown in the ocean with Skeleton Man, my mortal enemy, and Shrek, my best friend and war bunny from Nam. That was what I thought. Until suddenly, a blue whale flew out of the water and carried us like 50,000 miles to a random-ass country. I wanted to scream at the whale for touching my body without consent, but as soon as we were on land, the whale had shrunk into a small ladybug brooch and flew away in the opposite direction. I observed my surroundings. Shrek had fallen unconscious from the blast, but Skeleton Man was trying to sneak off like a little bitch, so I dashed after him. I didn't worry about Shrek. If he could survive the Simp Army, he could survive this. And I knew that when he woke up, he would be able to find me and Skeleton Man once more. Skeleton was doing epic parkour, swinging across the power lines and occasionally jumping onto windowsills. I chased him from below, shooting him with a Tommy gun, but it seemed like he was evading every shot, until eventually, I got him in the shin, and he fell over. Unfortunately, he had landed behind a large fence that I had to climb. When I reached the other side, I saw a horrible sight. A being of pure darkness and malice. A force of evil that feeds on the anguish, terror, and hopelessness of mere mortals. A Lovecraftian abomination, the likes of which were created in the alcoves of Hades itself. I dare not speak his name, but I did anyway. Danny. The creature hissed at me, showing its awful stubbly chin my way, trying to intimidate me. It worked. I was scared shitless, as I feared this was the end. That was until Skeleton Man began to beat the creature with a fucking baseball bat. Skeleton may have been my enemy, but he and I both knew the danger we were facing. I jumped in and began kicking the creature in its horrifyingly small testicles while chanting the incantation. Self-insert be gone. Self-insert be gone. Self-insert be gone. And in a flash, the creature let out a horrifying shriek as it was pulled back into the darkest corner of hell. Although you are my enemy, Skeleton Man, I must thank you for saving me back there, I said to Skeleton Man. To which the Skeleton Man merely replied,